If you've been paying attention the last few months, you know we've had an awfully dry winter. Here to discuss the state of water in Idaho is Dr. Alejandra Flores, hydrologist at Boise State University's Department of Geoscience. Lejo, thanks so much for joining us. What's the state of water right now?
Thanks a lot, Melissa, for having me. This is a question that I have seen come up in the Twitter sphere and elsewhere a lot. I have to be honest with you, right now it's not great. So there are four things that I'm looking at right now that I took a look at today. One is the precipitation that's fallen in Idaho thus far in the year. Two is our snowpacks, where are they at in terms of that natural reservoir of water. Three is the storage of water in our actual reservoirs. And then four, what is the outlook over the next couple months? And in all of those, it's a mixed bag to worse. And so from a precipitation perspective, for example, in the Boise River Basin right now, we're at about 85% of what we would receive on an annual year for this time of year. So that sounds okay, but then when we pivot to how much of that is in the snowpack, right? How much have we retained in snow at this point in the season? It's not looking quite as good. And so right now, in terms of the snowpack in the Boise River Basin, we're at 62% of where we should be this time of year. And in a historical perspective, we're in about the 10th percentile. So this is already shaping up to kind of not be a great year from a snowpack perspective. Then if we pivot and kind of look at, well, how much water is stored in our reservoirs right now, because that's what ultimately we will use later on in the summer to irrigate crops. There, it's a mixed bag, or close to being at pretty significant lows. And so Arrow Rock is fairly full. It's at about 89%. On the other hand, Lucky Peak is at 55% and Anderson Ranch at 40%. If you go over to the eastern part of the state, it gets even a little more bleak. Jackson Lake is about 22% full, and the Upper Snake in general above Palisades is about 38%. I don't think that it's going to get a lot better in terms of the precipitation story. So I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot more water coming in into Idaho in the next few months. We're just entering this time of year where it's usually pretty dry and pretty warm. And so I looked at the Climate Prediction Center, what they're looking at. We're probably going to have, they're expecting us to have relatively average temperatures, but it looks like we'll be average to below average precipitation over the next 1 to 3 months.
You touched on this a little bit, but what does this mean for Idaho ag?
Yeah, so those reservoirs, so the snowpack goes into the reservoirs, and the reservoirs are kind of really what we use to irrigate the crops in the Snake River Plain in the Treasure Valley over the course of the growing season. And with the reservoirs being half full or not that full, and the snowpack being at sort of fairly historical lows at this point, it looks like we might be in a pinch later on in the season. And of course, that's really going to depend on what the temperatures look like, right? So if we get a big heat wave early in the season like we did last year, that drives up the demand of water from the crops. And if we don't have the water to meet that demand, then we have to start either harvesting early or just sort of letting things go fallow.
And of course, I think we're all concerned about fires, no matter where we are in the state. Big implications too for how dry our forests might be.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on the snow side, right? Really the snow melts and then it goes into the soil, and then it's conveyed down into our rivers and streams. And so if we don't have the snowpack, or if that snowpack is melting quickly, we don't have the water that's in the mountain soils that the trees and shrubs can rely on into the summer season. And so, I do have some concerns that some of the forests might be entering this period where the trees are stressed earlier than they typically do this year because of that kind of lack of snowpack.
Are there some regions of the state that are in better shape, or is it kind of a bleak situation everywhere in Idaho right now?
Yeah, right now, the northern part of the state, so more in the Panhandle, appears to be a little bit better off just in terms of snowpack. But the southern part of the state is all pretty universally low on snow, low on flow, low on reservoir storage. And the where there is kind of forecasts for sort of potentially higher than normal temperatures is in kind of the southeastern part of the state where there's significantly higher chances of warmer than average temperatures over the next few months. And so that would be maybe one part of the state that I would kind of keep an eye on, especially.
We've talked about this snapshot in time with the last few months and the coming months. With the changing climate and warming trends that we've seen over the last several years, is this something that we just need to get used to in Idaho?
I think it's something that we as a state should start having, truthfully, some more discussions around drought mitigation, drought adaptation, how we manage our water resources, because I do unfortunately think that years like this are going to be happening more frequently in the future. And so anything we do to put in effort to build out drought resilience, build in drought adaptation in our communities, amongst our infrastructure, amongst our economic sectors, things that we can maybe do to be creative in banking water or storing water, things like aquifer storage and recovery. We should be thinking about that now, because I do really think that this is the start of what we expect to see going forward.
We have less than a minute left, but I know that water infrastructure has been high on the list of priorities for the Idaho legislature. What specifically would you like to see?
I think that really where we need some innovation is frequently in the policy sphere, and just sort of allowing for more innovative collaboration between water users and water managers in the future. That could make potentially really big differences with not a lot of big infrastructure.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Alejandro Flores, Boise State University, thank you so much for joining us today.